Medieval feudal society was a pyramid with the king at the top and the peasants at the bottom doing all the hard work. Nobody, not even the lords, owned any land. They simply had the use of it as long as they provided military service for the king. The peasants toiled in the fields, supporting those with more important things to do, like praying and fighting each other. Yeah, it's an excellent system, if you ask me. Stinking peasants. But since the lord of the manor was often away from his estate, fighting in the king's wars, he had to be able to rely on his peasants to organise themselves. In many ways, a medieval peasant had more say in how his life was run than most people do now. Of course, it's a way of life that's all gone, and we'll never know what it was really like to live under such a system. Except where I'm going now. The village of Laxton in Nottinghamshire is the only place in England that still works on the medieval system, the centre of which is the so-called court leet, elected every year by the village farmers. In medieval times, it had the power to formulate bylaws, collect rents, and maintain law and order. Today, the court's only job is to police the way the land is farmed. Once a year, on jury day, the jurors head out to check that no one is breaking any of the rules. The land is farmed in strips in the same way as it was 800 years ago. And each farmer's strip of land is separated not by fences, but by grassy borders of common land, known as sicks.
This little green strip of grass is the dividing furrow between the two strips. This one belongs to Mr. Godson and that one belongs to Mr. Noble.
What do you mean it's not straight?
No,
wiggly. I imagine we're going to be a big, a couple of yards of nice grass. And woe betide anyone caught ignoring these boundaries. As soon as we got there, an offence was spotted. A stray piece of turf.
What do you think's left this here, Roy? Ought to be put back.
Put back in, yeah.
So this is what you call soil on the common land?
Shoveling in. What you call shoveling in, yeah.
But we don't put it back in. Whoever's done it should
have done it.
That is a serious
offence.
So how much do you think they'll get fined for that then, right?
Oh, about £2, I think, yeah.
It's quite stiff, actually.
Yeah.
Then down to the serious matter of marking out the boundaries of each farmer's land, using the same high-tech methods developed in the Middle Ages, which leave plenty of room for debate.
To there, where Oller is, look. See it? There? Yeah. I reckon it wants to be there. Wants to be there. 5.
Offences such as ploughing over boundaries are taken very seriously and will be judged at the meeting of the court.
Oh yea, oh yea, oh yea, all manner of persons who owe suit and service to the court leet of the Queen's most excellent majesty, draw near and give your attendance. God save the Queen and the Lord of this court leet.
The presentment shows that dikes are satisfactory. There's a fine of £10 on Stuart Rose for ploughing too far into the Meadow Ends sick. Mr. Rose, do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, well, that was I ploughed to an original peg, which was already in the sick. So I thought I was ploughing in the right place, and I think £10 fine is a bit harsh.
Do you accept that it was the wrong place now?
Yeah, slightly, but I was ploughing to where it had been marked out.
Any comments from anyone else?
I think the fine should stand.
In medieval times, a man could be tried for murder in this court.
Was right at the time.
Well, the proposal of the court then is to reduce the fine from £10 to £5. Everyone in favour?
Yes.
For all their cunning, surely peasants were still nothing more than slaves. In the same way that the lord of the manor had to provide military service to the king, the peasants had to provide the lord of the manor with so many days' labour in return for the land they held from him. Historians have given this arrangement the catchy title of feudal burden. But just how much of a burden were these feudal duties? For example, the peasants who ploughed these fields 600 or 700 years ago bore one of the heaviest feudal burdens in the kingdom. That is to say, they had to work for the lord of the manor for something like 50 to 60 days in the year to provide their accommodation and pay their taxes. Nowadays, most of these fields are occupied by the BMW car plant. Now, to pay for their rent and taxes today, an assembly line worker has to work for something like 80 days in the year. That's nearly a month longer than the worst-off medieval peasants. Must have been a pretty unpleasant life, doesn't it?
It could be quite grim, but again, we've got to get rid of all of our modern views on what makes a good life.
So this is how the lowest of the low would live.
Yeah, we're right at the bottom here.
It's quite spacious, really.
Well, that's right. He has a nice little cottage, but that's about all he has going for him.
Yeah. So what does he do, this?
He's a landless labourer. Here's a chap who's had his land taken away right at the bottom.
And so he's got a fire. He's cooking himself something.
Yeah, very basic pot here above his hearth. Tiny amounts of wood that be used. None of the roaring fires that we'd think of, because all of his wood has to pay the lord of the manor wood penny, go out into the woods, and he can just collect what's fallen.
And he's got a bed, I see.
Delightful bed here, with just a mattress full of straw thrown on top of it, and a couple of rough old woolen blankets.
Plenty of fleas, I expect.
Hopefully not too bad, because hanging above them, we have some flea bane.
Oh.
So in theory, that keeps the fleas away.
If that was the bottom of the heap, what was it like on the top of the bottom of the heap? Next on the tour, an upmarket, semi-detached family home. A decidedly des res for the upwardly mobile professional peasant couple.
So whose house is this, Nick?
Now this is the Reeve's house.
And what's a reeve?
So
tell me what
we're going up market here. Every year, the free men of the village vote
Yeah.
for who they want to be the reeve.
Yeah.
And the reeve is almost like a village manager. Keeps an eye on things, makes sure that everybody's farming the land properly. He's a wealthy man, a wealthy villager.
So he doesn't make his money out of being reeve. He owns a lot of land.
That's right. He is the Land Rover Greenwelly farmer.
And a very, very upper-class fireplace.
Oh, he can afford it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
A Welsh dresser, I see.
Very important, especially for the reeve's wife. The first thing you see as you come in is her fine pottery display.
So she's showing it off to everybody.
Showing her jugs off to
Look
everybody.
how rich I am.
Exactly. We have some nice examples here. This one is Saintonge pottery.
Sounds French to me.
That's right, this has come up from the Bordeaux region, probably as part of the wine trade from that area. Anybody amongst the peasants is going to be drinking wine, it's going to be the reeve and his family.
Doesn't sound that bad to me, then. Maybe I could be a medieval peasant. I'll think about it.
Strip wood floors, shelves of holiday knickknacks, and a nice drop of Bordeaux wine. Maybe the medieval ideal home wasn't so different from today's. But I'm still a bit nervous about what they had to eat.
It's this.
Pottage.
Evidently, the recipe for pottage is take anything and put it into a pan of water and boil it up for 2 hours. Now, the reason you have to boil everything you pick out of the fields for 2 hours is because they used human excrement on the fields. So even lettuce had to be boiled, which made the salads rather soggy. Anyway, let's try the pottage. Well, it's pretty disgusting. But you could have cheered it up, I suppose, with a few herbs, maybe even some garlic. They also had an instant form of pottage, and you could take this into the fields with you, and then you could liquefy it with a bit of beer and eat that if you wanted to. Anyway, the good news about being a peasant was that you got to drink plenty of beer. They didn't have hops until 1420, when they were imported from Flanders. So before that, you had to flavour the beer with other things, like bog myrtle, this one's flavoured with. It's basically the same sort of stuff. Let's have a taste of that. Of course, they tended to drink alcoholic drinks rather than water, because the water was usually not very drinkable.